picture the scenario for a second. Your palms are sweating. Your heart is like hammering against your ribs.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right. Someone has just asked you a completely ordinary question. Maybe they're asking for directions or what you thought of a movie.
And your brain just completely shuts down.
Exactly. It turns into a dial-up modem from, 1998.
Yeah.
You are just frozen.
Yeah, even though you know the words.
Yes. You've studied the flashcards, but in this moment, you just can't string a single coherent sentence together.
It's so incredibly frustrating.
It really is. And if you are joining us today, I know you understand the weight of that feeling because you are a learner.
Absolutely. You don't just want to scratch the surface. You want to understand the actual mechanics underneath.
Right. So today, we are setting out on a very special mission for this deep dive. I'm your host, and joined as always by our resident expert.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
We are not going to just talk about isolated grammar tips today.
Yeah.
And we aren't reviewing flashcard apps.
No, we're doing something much bigger.
We are. We're embarking on a detailed chronological narrative of the entire language learning journey.
Because mapping this out is so crucial. It really shatters the illusion of the straight line.
Yeah, that straight line doesn't exist, does it?
Not at all. Language acquisition is almost never a steady upward trajectory. I mean, it's a profound emotional arc.
It really is an emotional roller coaster.
It is. It's a journey that actually begins in a place of, crippling anxiety.
And then it forces you into this retreat of deep, grueling, foundational work.
Right. Before dangerously flirting with the allure of these rapid, almost sci-fi shortcuts.
Which we will definitely get into. But it ultimately arrives at, native speed cultural immersion.
Exactly.
So I want to say this directly to you, the listener. Whether you're currently in the trenches trying to master English yourself, or you're just fascinated by how the human brain acquires complex skills, this journey is absolutely packed with surprising insights.
It really is. And we have to start where every learner starts.
Right. The starting line, which is dominated by one massive psychological obstacle.
English-speaking anxiety.
Yes. It is the great paralyzer.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, long before a learner can even begin to refine an accent or use context vocabulary, they have to confront the actual physiological reality of panic.
Because it's not just feeling a little shy, is it?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's a genuine fight or flight response.
Wow.
Yeah, when the brain detects a social threat like, the embarrassment of sounding foolish or misunderstanding a native speaker, the amygdala basically hijacks your cognitive process.
So it's literally a physical brain response.
Exactly. The prefrontal cortex, which is where you store all those grammar rules you studied, it just gets shut out.
That explains why you'd just go blank.
Right. And this forces the learner into a corner. They quickly realize that passive casual studying just isn't going to cut it.
Like doing 5 minutes on a language app on the bus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the anxiety just overrides all of that surface level knowledge in the heat of the moment.
So they're forced to look for a method that builds a bedrock of confidence so deep that the panic can't shake it.
Precisely. And that's where the first major turning point in our narrative happens.
Right, when the learner abandons that anxious, scattered approach.
They stop trying to force themselves into these terrifying conversations they aren't ready for.
And they commit to what is known as a 1+ hour deep work session.
Yes. And the psychology behind this shift is just fascinating.
Tell us about it.
Well, to bypass that initial panic, you cannot just drill random words out of context. The brain needs a continuous, predictable anchor.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
This phase is entirely about deep, immersive study of a single narrative. The classic example in this journey is taking an accessible, engaging book.
Something like, say, The Secret Garden.
Exactly. The Secret Garden is perfect. The learner sits with it for over an hour at a time, completely immersed, just shutting out the rest of the world.
Okay, but let's unpack the mechanics of this because I have to push back a little here.
Sure, go ahead.
A full, uninterrupted hour of reading a novel like The Secret Garden sounds incredibly overwhelming for someone who's already struggling with basic anxiety.
I get why you'd say that.
I mean, if I'm terrified to order a coffee in English, wouldn't staring at a wall of English text for an hour just feel like drowning?
It seems like throwing them into the deep end, absolutely.
Right.
But here's the mechanism that makes it work. Reading provides what linguists call comprehensible input.
Comprehensible input.
Yeah. When you're reading a story, you are in total control of the pace. Nobody is waiting for your response.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. Nobody's judging your pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
The anxiety completely melts away because the narrative structure of a book naturally guides your brain out of that defensive state.
You enter a state of flow.
Exactly. You drop the fight or flight and just flow.
So the story itself acts as a kind of psychological safety net.
It really does.
You're absorbing the language, but the pressure of performance is literally zero.
That is the absolute magic of it. You're quietly absorbing the syntax, how sentences are naturally constructed, the vocabulary, the rhythm.
All in a completely low-stakes environment.
Exactly. A story like The Secret Garden is highly effective because it's engaging enough to hold adult attention, but the language is, descriptive and grounded.
Right.
That 1 hour of unbroken deep work builds a massive, silent cognitive foundation. It floods the brain with correct English patterns without ever triggering the social panic.
So our learner puts in the hours, they do the deep work, they build this rich, silent vocabulary in their head.
And the anxiety starts to fade.
Because they realize they actually understand the language when they consume it.
Yes, but the frustration doesn't just disappear.
Right, it evolves.
Exactly, because understanding the language in your head is a completely different neurological process than producing it with your mouth.
Yeah, those are two very different things. So this is the crucial pivot in the narrative.
Right. The silent receptive phase has done its job, but now it has to end.
Because the learner wants to speak. They want to fix their pronunciation.
They want the fluency they feel on the inside to be reflected on the outside.
And this desire pulls our learner out of the safety of the garden and throws them into the mechanical, gritty, highly repetitive phase of the journey.
Oh, yeah. We are entering the grind.
The grind. This is where the learner commits to a grueling 30-day English shadowing challenge.
Which is intense.
It is. For anyone unfamiliar with shadowing, we are talking about a physical workout for the face and throat.
Literally a physical workout.
The learner takes a set of exactly 99 sentences. Every single day, they play an audio clip of a native speaker, and they attempt to perfectly echo the rhythm, the intonation, and the exact tone, like a split second behind the recording.
Right.
But wait, why exactly 99 sentences? That seems suspiciously specific.
It's very deliberate. 99 sentences provide a closed loop.
Okay.
It's a large enough sample size to capture a huge variety of phonemes, the distinct sounds of a language, as well as different emotional inflections.
Like questions, statements, exclamations.
Exactly. But it's small enough that a learner can actually memorize the musicality of those specific sentences over 30 days.
I see.
You have to remember, speaking a foreign language is a biomechanical act.
Biomechanical.
Yeah. Your lips, your tongue, your jaw, your vocal cords, they've spent your entire life moving in specific patterns dictated by your native language.
So they're used to one way of moving.
Right. Shadowing is literally reprogramming your motor cortex.
Yeah.
You hear the native speaker and you instantly echo it back. You are forcing your muscles to move in entirely new ways.
Okay, but here's where it gets incredibly complicated for the learner.
How so?
Well, what actually is shadowing at its core? Because when you describe the mechanics echoing a recording a fraction of a second later, are we just training people to be parrots?
That's a big question.
Right. Yeah. Doesn't this completely strip away authentic, spontaneous communication? If I spend 30 days mimicking 99 sentences perfectly, I'm not really having a conversation, am I?
And that is the exact brick wall the learner inevitably slams into.
Ouch.
Yeah. And it brings us to the harsh truth about shadowing.
Which is?
As a mechanism, shadowing is absolutely vital for developing muscle memory. You physically cannot develop a natural-sounding accent without that biomechanical repetition.
Right.
However, the truth they discover is that shadowing is just a tool. It's not a magic bullet.
So it builds the hardware, but it doesn't write the software.
That is a brilliant way to put it, yes.
Yeah.
Without generating the context, the emotion, and the personal intent behind the words, you are literally just making noises.
Just parroting.
Exactly. Shadowing builds the physical capability to sound native, but it teaches you absolutely nothing about how to navigate a dynamic conversation.
So our learner realizes that they can perfectly recite those 99 sentences in their bedroom.
But the moment they step onto the street and a barista asks them a question they haven't shadowed, they freeze all over again.
Oh man, that realization has to be utterly exhausting.
It is devastating.
Imagine dedicating a month to this intense daily vocal workout, finally sounding fantastic when you talk to yourself in the mirror, and then realizing you are still not completely fluent in the real world.
This is exactly what triggers the classic mid-journey plateau.
The dreaded plateau.
Right. The initial rapid gains of reading and shadowing have slowed down.
Yeah.
The novelty is completely worn off.
And this plateau is arguably the most dangerous part of the entire narrative, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because this is where fatigue turns into sheer desperation.
Our learner is just tired. They've conquered the initial anxiety, they've done the silent deep work, they've done the mechanical grind, and they just want to cross the finish line already.
And this is where they start searching for extreme shortcuts.
Oh, yeah. They start overhauling their entire lifestyle. They adopt mentalities like the 5 a.m. club.
Right, forcing themselves out of bed before dawn.
Hoping that sheer discipline and rigorous new habits will somehow, force their brain to absorb fluency faster.
The 5 a.m. club mentality is such a fascinating psychological trap for language learners.
How so?
It's the false belief that physical discipline can somehow substitute for cognitive adaptation.
Right, like waking up early doesn't make the grammar easier.
No, it just makes you a very tired language learner.
Seriously. But the desperation doesn't stop there?
No, it gets much more extreme.
This is where they stumble onto highly marketed, seemingly miraculous methods. Specifically, the secret CIA method to learn any language in 11 days.
Oh, the 11-day CIA method. The appeal of this is so obvious.
I mean, yeah, you're stuck on a plateau and someone offers you an 11-day escalator to the top.
Exactly. But we have to look at why the learner gravitates toward this and what the method actually represents.
Okay, let's look at it.
Extreme programs like intelligence agency methods or drastic lifestyle shifts like the 5 a.m. wake-ups are ultimately just dramatic vehicles for the real cognitive shift that has to happen at this stage.
Which is what?
The learner is subconsciously trying to force their brain into a corner where it has to stop translating from their native language and actually start thinking in English.
Okay, I'm going to call a major timeout here.
Fair enough.
An 11-day CIA method sounds like a sci-fi brain download straight out of a movie.
It really does.
I understand the appeal of the marketing, but can a human being actually rewire their neural pathways to stop translating in less than 2 weeks?
Well, we have to separate the marketing hype from the actual mechanics of what intelligence training does.
Okay. Can you achieve rich cultural fluency in 11 days?
Absolutely not.
Good. I was worried there for a second.
No. What these methods actually do in that short time frame is create a high-stakes survival-level framework.
Survival level.
Yes, they isolate you completely from your native language and immerse you so aggressively that your brain is forced to create an emergency secondary pathway. You learn to communicate basic, vital concepts, locations, threats, immediate needs, without pausing to translate, because pausing could mean failure.
But that is triage. That is survival, not fluency.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like learning to swim by being thrown out of a helicopter into the middle of the ocean?
That is a very apt analogy.
You're not going to be swimming beautifully, you aren't doing the butterfly stroke, but your brain figures out how to paddle fast enough so you don't drown.
Yes, the survival instinct forces the action. But to achieve actual fluency, the lasting, comfortable ability to stop translating in your head requires a much deeper, permanent change.
A change in what, exactly?
In how the learner interacts with their own daily thoughts. It is not an 11-day hack. The mental shift requires the learner to actively change their internal monologue.
Okay, but how does someone actually do that? How do you change the voice inside your head?
It requires relentless, conscious labeling of your internal world.
Labeling.
Yeah. Think about it. When you walk into your kitchen and look at a coffee cup, your natural instinct is to think of the word for cup in your native language and then translate it to English.
Right, that's the default.
To break the plateau, you have to force your brain to map the English word cup directly to the physical object. You have to start narrating your actions in English.
Oh, wow.
When you stub your toe, your internal reaction has to be in English.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. The CIA method and the 5 a.m. habits are just desperate external attempts to force this internal switch. But the real work is quiet, constant, and internal.
But once that internal switch actually flips, once they finally decouple from their native language, abandon the desperate shortcuts, and map their thoughts directly to English,
then they are ready to face the final boss of the language journey.
they are ready for the real world.
Exactly.
And the transition here is just staggering.
It's massive.
We're moving from the sterile, highly controlled environment of study, the quiet safety of reading a book, the predictable echoing of 99 sentences, the isolated vocabulary drills, into the messy, chaotic, unpredictable reality of native communication.
The training wheels are coming completely off.
Yes. Our learner throws themselves into the absolute deep end. They begin consuming 40-minute blocks of raw, unedited English listening.
We are talking about C1 and C2 level material here.
Specifically tailored for something like IELTS Band 9.
Right. And let's give some context to what that actually means, because it highlights just how far the learner has come.
Yeah, break that down for us.
So the B1 level is your standard intermediate. You can navigate a store. You can have a polite conversation.
Sure.
C1 and C2 are the highest levels of proficiency, where you're dealing with complex academic or professional concepts.
And IELTS.
IELTS is the international testing standard, and hitting a Band 9 essentially means your comprehension is indistinguishable from a highly educated native speaker.
Wow. So this is raw native speed.
Yes.
There are no subtitles in this phase. There is no slowed down audio for learners.
None.
The learner is navigating real life British English, like street interviews in places like Winchester.
Exactly.
They're dealing with overlapping voices, people using local slang, background traffic noise, and trailing sentences. They have pushed so far past that B1 intermediate level.
And this brings up a really profound question about the nature of this final phase.
What's that?
What is the learner actually listening to at this point? When you are consuming C1 and C2 native speed conversations, you're no longer studying grammar structures.
No.
You're no longer consciously hunting for vocabulary words.
No, you're doing something much deeper. You're absorbing culture.
That's it.
And that is the ultimate realization of this entire chronological journey.
Yeah.
The journey ends exactly where all human communication begins.
With stories.
With stories. At this highest level, the learner isn't practicing English anymore. They are using English to experience complex, rich human narratives.
They move from studying the language to consuming the world through the medium of the language.
Exactly. Instead of grammar drills, they're diving into literary pieces, like the famous story, The Necklace.
Right.
They aren't reading it to learn past tense verbs. They're reading it to understand the subtle class anxieties and social pressures of 19th century France, translated and adapted into English.
It's a completely different level of engagement.
It really is. They are absorbing grand historical epics, exploring how a girl they called Nobody became England's greatest queen, to understand the foundational myths of British culture.
And they listen to profound religious and historical accounts, like the story of Muhammad.
They even dive into highly nuanced cultural observations, listening to essays unpacking why the French supposedly do not care about work.
Right. When a learner is listening to an essay about French work culture in English, they are analyzing contrasting global worldviews. They're evaluating sociological concepts.
The English language has simply become the invisible bridge, allowing them to cross into that foreign territory.
And that reframes the entire mission.
It really does. It makes you realize that the ultimate goal of learning English, or any language, really was never actually about the language itself.
Not at all.
The grammar, the vocabulary, the syntax, they were never the destination. The destination was getting access to these stories.
Because knowledge is only truly valuable when it is applied.
Absolutely.
Think about the entire chronological struggle we just walked through. The paralyzing fight-or-flight speaking anxiety. The hours of deep, silent reading to build a foundation.
The grueling mechanical grind of shadowing 99 sentences just to teach the jaw how to move.
Yes. The exhaustion of the plateau and the desperate attempts to hack the brain to stop translating.
All of that pain, all of that effort was simply the price of admission.
It is the toll you have to pay on the road.
You pay that toll so you can finally sit at the table and engage with these diverse human stories and cultural perspectives.
The language is just the vehicle. Human connection is the destination.
That is just an incredible lens to view this through.
It really changes how you look at the whole process.
It does. So just to recap this massive narrative arc you've been on with us today.
Let's do it.
We started in the trenches, completely frozen by speaking anxiety. We grounded ourselves with deep, focused reading to build a silent foundation of comprehensible input.
Then we tested the physical biomechanics of speech through the repetition of shadowing.
We hit the wall of exhaustion, flirted with extreme survival mode shortcuts, and did the hard internal work of changing our inner monologue to stop translating.
And finally, having survived all of that, we broke through to native speed cultural storytelling.
Where the language fades away and leaves us connected to the rest of the world.
It is a remarkable, profound transformation of the human mind.
Truly.
And tracing this journey from start to finish leaves us with a very deep question to consider.
I love a good final thought. What is it?
Well, mastering a language ultimately means training your brain to think entirely differently, changing your internal monologue, and absorbing completely new cultural stories and worldviews.
Yeah.
What parts of your own native identity do you inevitably leave behind when you finally achieve true fluency in another?
Oh, wow. That is a deeply fascinating thought to sit with. I mean, do you become a different person?
It's a question every true learner has to answer for themselves.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an incredible journey.
Thanks for having me.
Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.